So it didn't surprise me, knowing the kind of kid that Josh was. So I feel like in some ways I'm partly responsible for this. So Josh grew up with animals. When he was little, I was a board member of the California Turtle and Tortoise Society, and I was on the adoptions team. So we counted that at one time we had probably 60 to 70 different turtles and tortoises in our home. So that's what he grew up with. That was our first. So reptiles were his first love. He wanted to be Steve Irwin. When Steve Irwin passed, Josh and his best friend Johnny Carlson, who was on the board of directors for the zoo, had, I'm not kidding, a funeral for Steve Irwin in our front yard. They made a sign, honk if you love Steve Irwin. He went into mourning. So, and then from that point, you know, growing up with what we had, and as he got older, he just expanded.
So at first we were like, is this a midlife crisis? Do we need to research mental institutions? And then as time went on and stuff started coming together, and we're like, okay, this is really gonna work. And it's been awesome. Way more people coming than we ever dreamed of coming. It's been amazing. It's really cool to see it from just bare walls in a mall to a jungle in a mall. So it's been really cool.
You know, as he built the zoo, he was doing plumbing. And so he's working 60 or 80 hours a week doing plumbing and coming here and working till 2 or 3 in the morning. You know, and I know he's my son and I'm proud of him. And I'm probably biased, you know, and I know he has his faults, but he is an awesome young man who works hard to provide for his family and make this dream come true.
Boo! Scared the birds.
Where did it all start for me? Great question. I mean, honestly, it probably started for me in my mother's womb. I come from a big family, so there's 5 children. I'm 1 boy, 4 sisters. So as a kid growing up, when I had the option to play with my sisters who wanted to play dress up and I wanted to play Legos or play war or something and they didn't want to, I opted to play outside. So I spent a lot of time outdoors as a kid, familiarizing myself with the created world, and I just developed a passion for nature, watching the way that the trees changed colors with the season, the bugs, how everything interacted, flipping over logs, finding snakes and lizards. So I've always had that draw towards nature and towards, just like I said, the created world has this appeal to me. And then growing older, as I begin to study it, I see that there's a lot to be gleaned from that, a lot that can help us to understand our purpose and why we're here. This complex, beautiful world doesn't exist just for nothing. There's a reason, and the more we spend time pursuing that, we can really unlock our purpose. So that's kind of one of my main passions. As a young boy, my family was really involved in animals. We raised small livestock. My parents bred parrots. So my mom was involved in rescue and rehab, so I was familiar with injured animals coming in all the time. I remember that as a 6-year-old, there was one particular case, maybe it was a transport or something. My mom was working with a friend of hers that also kept animals, and he had an alligator in his bathtub. And I remember walking in his bathroom and there's this alligator, and I watched him feed it a gopher, and it just blew my 6-year-old mind. To this day, it's as clear as a bell I can picture that. And it's just something that's always fascinated me. It's always been a passion of mine.
So I remember when Josh came to my office and said, I want you to take a look at this, and he handed me a business plan to start a zoo in the Twin Falls Mall. And I said, you are out of your mind, buddy. But then I started going through the business plan, and it was probably the best, well thought out business plan I've ever seen. It had predictions on attendance, predictions on income, the types of animals, the feeding required. It was just amazing. So I said, go for it. You asked me earlier, is he crazy? Yeah, he's as crazy as they come. but it's a good kind of crazy, and I'm super proud of what they've accomplished here.
Josh came to me back when he started the Southern Idaho Reptile Rescue, and he just said, hey look, I want to do this thing, and will you be on my board of directors? And I was young, I was like, that sounds pretty cool to be on a board of directors. I don't think I'm old enough yet. But really he just wanted to pick my brain when they got something that he didn't have experience with. And so that's what I had been doing for a long time. And I'm gonna go out there, I'm gonna show you how to take care of these animals. And then it started even growing from that. And he goes, hey, I wanna make this a zoo. How do I make this a zoo? And I was working at a zoo at the time. So we kind of talked about that. We collaborated on what enclosures need to look like to be able to house specific animals. And now I look at this and I'm just blown away. I've had to do most of my part from afar off, as I don't live in Idaho, but I've been able to come out here and to see it changing even in a few months from when I came right before they were able to open to now when I'm seeing it opened and people are coming and they're being excited. This is just amazing. And I had my doubts, but man, he pulled this off.
I met Josh because my wife saw kind of tortoise escape by the airport in Twin Falls. It actually made the news. Fish and Game, because there was no other resources. You know, when I was calling for it, it was turned over to him, so I ended up calling him. And we started doing educational presentations together and realizing that there was a need for more housing for animals that there was no other resource for. Josh's vision of building a Twin Falls Zoological Center, so we incorporated into the mall at the worst time possible during COVID and struggled and endeavored and came up with a great result, really.
Hey, this would be a really cool project to work on. I don't sit still well, and that's kind of why my wife always says, this is it, right? You're gonna sit still after this, or just sit in one place and do the zoo and then no more projects. You're not gonna say, hey, let's do a water park or anything like that, which is the running joke. I tell her, hey, we should open a restaurant. We should open a water park. And at this point, my board just says, sit down and be quiet, and my family says, sit down and be quiet. But they're really supportive. No one ever told me it was a bad idea. A lot of times they'd say, this is crazy. How are you gonna do it? But my parents always very supportive. My siblings really supportive. They've really been excited to see this come to fruition. I think there were quite a few times over the last 2 years when they would come to the facility and see it and go, how are you ever going to clean up this mess? How are you ever going to get that tank completed? And I don't blame them. And as I mentioned too, there's a lot of sacrifice. There's a lot of family dinners we just couldn't make it to. I had to finish plumbing contracts so that we could get funds to buy the next amount of equipment, or if we had the funds, we really couldn't waste any time. We had to really get that stuff in so that we could approach sponsors. So there was a lot that we've missed out on as a family in the last couple years. And I think that they bore that all with grace. I think they really kind of understood that we'd put a lot into it and it was on the line, and they were always rooting for us. And I've got you know, every member of my family involved in some way. Like I said, my 4 sisters, they've all helped out in some way, whether sharing posts online or spreading the word locally or being a resource, you know, asking questions or just even somebody to talk to. My parents have been great. It's been quite a few times I go sit in my dad's office and he looks at me and I look at him and we just sit in silence, and then I take a deep breath and I get up and walk out, and he's like, I'm praying for you. And I'm okay, thanks. I just go hit it again. So they've been great. They may think I'm crazy. They've been overjoyed to see it open. So it's been really awesome. Yeah, I guess that's it. I really would like to thank everybody. There were a lot of people that thought that this was crazy. Not that it wasn't. There's a lot of people that maybe started out on the venture and went a while and eventually said, hey, this is too much for me to bear. And I just want to thank everybody for listening and for sharing and for giving us a shot. It's a really unique project. It's a really unique thing we've brought here. and I recognize, I'm really grateful to mall management that I walked in with a clipboard and a stack of papers and said, I'd like to bring alligators in here, and they didn't kick me out. They were willing to listen, and they saw the benefit, and they saw the asset it could be to the community. I'm grateful for the city of Twin Falls. We went in and said, hey, this is the project we want, and they went, we do not have a section in our code book for zoo, but let's call a meeting and figure it out, right? So I'm grateful for the contractors that I work for when they call me and say, hey, are you coming to set this water heater? And I go, I'm changing a gator pump. I'll be there as soon as I can, and they've been really patient and really gracious. So I'm just really grateful for everybody around that has kind of borne with us in one degree or another through the struggles. I'm really grateful to our board, particularly our marketing director, David. He's been a huge help, a huge resource, and we've been at each other's throats, but we said from the beginning we're going to make this happen. I'm grateful for his family and the support they've had. I'm grateful for my sister Rachel. She's our general manager. She has worked tirelessly for a really long time with every short end of the stick job you can imagine, and she built this place. I mean, she's amazing, and I'm again really grateful to my wife, to my family, to my church for their support. So yeah, it still hasn't settled in. I'm still sitting in my bed at night and going, did this really happen? Like, are we really here? And I'm glad to be here. So thank you to everybody.